Sonny,
Yeah,
what do you think of your first moose?
pretty good.
Holy God. So, we got it most of the way into land. Look at the size of that thing.
Welcome to Yukon and North 61. Say lavarong, Canoe mana, say lavarong, Canoe mana, haw. Canoe season, first frost. Let's go take a look. Welcome to the Yukon and North 61. The 3 rules of choosing a canoe for moose hunting. Rule 1, capacity. Rule 2, capacity. Rule 3, capacity. Here's a 16-foot prospector, Bill Mason's favorite. It's even red. This is the Nova Craft, which has very similar lines, 36 inches wide, 15 inches deep at the center. So it's a nice capacity for a 16-footer. With 6 inches of freeboard, you're only taking probably 900 pounds in this boat. 900 pounds is probably a bare minimum for a solo paddler and a medium-sized moose. If you got a giant moose, you'd have to probably debone them to take them back. But 6 inches is your very, very minimum that you want to have. You're far better off with 8 inches. 6 inches, if you're in rough water at all, you risk swamping. So choosing a canoe for moose hunting. Capacity. Solo. So solo, you're looking at the weight of a paddler, 150 to 300 pounds, depending on how fat you are. The weight of your gear, probably 100 pounds. You're not backpacking, but lighten your gear to be 100 pounds. You can sometimes spoil yourself and take too much weight. Don't. Use your sheep hunting philosophy a little bit, but a little more comfortable than that. And then your moose. If you gutless skin, you can get your moose down. If you had a nice small moose, or you're in the south and you're getting a southern moose, 500 pounds. Up here, probably 650 pounds is better. The quarters are going to weigh about 100 pounds, and that's not the quarters as cut on the farm. That's the quarters as cut with gutless skinning. Big moose might be 130 pounds. Ribs, you can debone. Neck, you can debone. Head, you take the head, you're taking, must be probably 100 pounds there too. Some people love the nose and all that kind of stuff. If you eat it, bring it. If you don't eat it, check the legality of your area. You can sometimes, take the antlers and leave parts of the head. You could also debone get the tongue and some of the really good cuts. But you want to get your weight down to no more than 750 pounds. You got to move that meat over and over again anyway, so get your weight down. So solo, you're looking at a boat that can carry between 740 to 1,040 pounds. So on the lower end of that, I like the prospectors because they got lots of volume. The good prospectors are 15 inches deep, which is kind of a minimum. And so with 7 inches of freeboard, which is sort of your minimum, you're looking at a 16-foot, a good 16-foot prospector would do that. And on the top of that, at that end, you're looking at an 18-foot prospector would do that. And with a 17.5 being somewhere in the middle. So that's solo. However, if you're going to tandem canoe, now you've got at least 300 pounds of guys. And probably more gear, probably now 150 pounds of gear. So now you're looking at a 450 pound load. You don't have enough weight to bring a moose unless you debone them. And when you debone a moose, they don't last as long. So even with that 17.5-foot prospector, you really don't have enough boat, I don't think, for tandem canoeing. One guy I saw last year in a little chain of lakes took 2 canoes. Him and his partner, and they had a little motor. Tandem. Well, not only are you adding another 150 to 300 pounds for another guy or girl, but you're also adding some more gear and food. So now your gear, it doesn't have to double, but it should be now it's maybe 150 pounds. So you're maybe adding between 300 and 450, 300 and 350 pounds or so of weight, depending on the size of the paddler. And you still have your moose to take. So now you're looking at 1,000 to 1,300 pounds. So now you're looking at 18-foot prospector as being the minimum, and a 19.6, something like a 19.6. They sell a 19-foot B19 North Star canoes. Looks really interesting. It's only 14 inches deep, but it's almost 20 feet long. And you've also got your 18.6 and 20-foot Mackenzie by Clipper, and they have a 1,300 and 1,500 pound weight limit. So that 20-foot Mackenzie in a Kevlar layup would be an awfully good boat for a tandem moose. It gives you a little bit of extra. A lot of these other boats, you're just barely minimum. And 6 inches of freeboard, if you're in bad water, you got a chance of swamping, or even when you eddy out, you get your lean a little bit wrong. It's a little bit tricky with 6 inches. You're better off with 7 or 8. For this 6 horsepower Suzuki, it's 55 pounds. Each 5 gallons of gas is 40 pounds. You're probably going to need at least 3 of those. So you're looking at about 180 pounds just of motor and gas that you have to add to your gear. 2.5, half is heavy at about 30 pounds. And I'd only need to bring 10 gallons of gas, so that's 80 pounds. It's about 110 pounds instead of about 180 pounds. But it's still adding 110 pounds. So if you're a motorized canoe, you got to add that weight to your total too. And you can see that these regular sized canoes aren't really enough. And probably the best boats that I've come across are the Mackenzies by Clipper. They have an 18.5 with about 1,300 pounds of capacity, which is probably big enough, and a 20-footer, which has 1,500 pounds of capacity, which when you do all the adding up is probably the minimum canoe is the 20-foot Mackenzie. First choice to make about the motor is, do you want a double ender or do you want a freighter with a Y stern or a square end? And if you're going just downstream, there's no problem having a double ender, because you can mount the 2.5 2 horsepower motor on the side. You don't want to put much more motor on the side because it unbalances. There's even an advantage to that, is that when you're into shallow water, you lean. And you can lean that motor up, so you can instantly kind of change the depth of the motor. But if you want to get some real power and sometimes go against the stream or get some speed, you're better off getting the Y stern or the square stern, because you can put 5-6 horsepower. In Alaska, they even run 9.9s. You're not supposed to, according to the manufacturer, but everybody does. And you can get some real power out of those so that you can go upstream. So that's your first choice. So the 18-foot Mackenzie Sport is basically the 20-foot Mackenzie with 2 feet chopped off the end. And that sounds inelegant, but it actually works out to be a pretty good boat. You got a fairly good flotation back there because it's fairly wide. And so you don't get a lot of hogging down. It actually turns out to be a pretty good design. So I really like that boat, but there's boats like it. Other boats like it. So square end, Y stern, double-ended. Up to you. You add a motor now, and you're adding another 130, 180 pounds, because you can also bring gas. It's 40 pounds per 5 gallons of gas, almost 37 pounds probably. So, and I think you need 8 inches of freeboard when you have a motor, because the motor, if you can get yourself in trouble with the motor because you now have actual power. You can also get yourself out of trouble, but that extra freeboard is really handy. So now you're looking at the big freighters that are 17 to 18 feet long, 19 feet long. That aluminum Grumman 19-footers, totally adequate. 18-foot Mackenzie Sports, totally adequate. Some of the 17-foot deep canoes, but you want a deep canoe. We had an aluminum canoe was only 12 inches deep. It was no good at all. You need at least 15 inches deep. The Mackenzie Sport, 17 inches deep. That's 17 inches is a lot better. There's some interesting smaller designs, but if you're a big guy, make sure you've got that 8 inches figured out. Go on that Clipper website and compare sizes of their boats with other boats, and you can kind of get a fairly good idea of what kind of freeboard you're getting. And don't skimp on the freeboard. So, what canoe do you need for hunting moose? You probably need more than you think you do to have a little bit of safety margin. So it's a really fun way to go. My moose hunting days are probably coming to an end. I probably got another 5 or 6 years left, and then I'm going to retire myself. Unless the boy wants to take me at some point when he's out of university and doing his own thing, maybe I'll go as a consultant. But it's been a really fun game, and I really love the old canoes. But I didn't realize when I first started this game that I was sometimes under canoed, and you only need to go out with 4 or 5 inches of freeboard. You're only going to do that one time, and even 6 inches of freeboard. I don't know. You get in weather, you start looking at the water, and you're better off with 8. So good luck. Hope this has helped.